and thank you so much for joining me today for this thought from the Bible. My name is Becky and I'm here on this beautiful beach in Liberia in West Africa to share an encouragement from God's Word with you this morning. So if you've been watching any of the videos that I've released over the last few weeks, you'll know that we've been following along with the story of a man called Moses and the Israelite people. We followed them as they left Egypt with these amazing signs and wonders, and as they spent a year at Mount Sinai building the tabernacle, this amazing place where God's presence on earth would rest, and also receiving instructions and laws for how the people of God were to conduct themselves, how they were to be a people set apart from the other peoples at that time. And finally, we find the Israelites on the way to their promised land. And just as they're getting close to it, they decide to send out 12 scouts, one from each tribe of Israel, to go and have a little look. And so they go, they scout the land, they come back to the Israelites and they say, yes, this land is really, really good. But we read it in Numbers chapter 13, verses 27 to 28, which said, they, the scouts, gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. And this report that the scouts bring back to the people of Israel makes them tremble in fear. And so the entire community decide that they are going to forget the promises of God, that they are going to stone Moses, elect a new leader, and go back to the place where they were enslaved in Egypt. It's easy to give the Israelites a bit of a hard time, I think, when you read through their story. Why did they keep on going wrong? Why didn't they learn their lessons? Why wouldn't they believe that God could win the battles for them when they had seen him move in such incredible and miraculous ways? But when you stop and think about their story a little bit more deeply, I think you start to feel a little bit uncomfortable, because it's easy to see some of the things that they did reflected in our own lives. So I actually have a little bit of sympathy for those scouts, because they walked into that land, they looked around, and they saw literal giants. They saw people who were physically stronger than them. It is, in a perfectly natural sense, there was no way that they could win. It was utterly and completely impossible. They were defeated by the butt. It looks really good. The land looks amazing, but there's no way that we can do that. Now, these people had seen God move in amazing ways. They'd seen miracles. They'd seen the deliverance of the Israelites from Egypt. They had seen the literal presence of God in a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire guiding them day after day. But they couldn't see what was beyond their own eyes. And as I was reading it, it reminded me of another story in the Bible when a prophet, a man called Elisha, found himself utterly surrounded by an army that was there with the entire express purpose of capturing and arresting him. We read that story in 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 15 to 17. When the servant of the man of God, the servant of Elisha, got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked, and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. Elisha's servant was a man who had also seen God move in incredible, amazing, miraculous ways. But he was also blinded by that but. Yes, I've seen God move before. But now we're completely lost. Now we are defeated. Now we are surrounded, and there is absolutely no way that we can get out of this. I wonder, how often do we look at a situation, we look at something that seems good, something that maybe God has even called us to, but just like those scouts going into the promised land, the buts start to creep in. Oh yeah, that promise sounds amazing, but that's not for me. You know, that's just for other Christians. That's for someone else. It's not for me. But yeah, I'd love to do that. That sounds amazing, but it's a little bit too much work. It's too hard for me. I don't have the time to do it. Or maybe that sounds great, but that is utterly, completely impossible. That is beyond me. There is no way that I can do what you're asking me to do, God. I find myself in a situation a bit like that right now. When I'm wearing my other hat, I'm an author and I'm trying to get my second novel published right now in an industry that is one of the most competitive on earth. And it's so hard to keep believing that something can come of it. But every time I pray, I feel like God tells me, keep going, keep pushing. But it's all too easy to be blinded by the but what if I'm hearing wrong from God? But what if this is never gonna happen for me? But this seems impossible. It's so easy for us to have those thoughts. I think all of us have probably had those thoughts at some point in our lives. It's easy to question whether God can do anything in this situation that we find ourselves in. But as we see all through history, we're not alone, because many other people have had that reaction too. Even people who have seen God move in incredible ways. But we have a choice. When we find ourselves in that sort of situation, when we find ourselves hearing that but in our mind, we can focus on that excuse, we can focus on that but, we can focus on that doubt. Or we can pray, just like Elisha did, that God would open our eyes to see how the situation really is. Because absolutely nothing is impossible for him. Where we see defeat, he sees victory. Where we can't see a way through, he sees a clear path. Where we feel completely incapable and incompetent and overwhelmed, he sees a child of God, chosen and gifted and equipped to overcome in this very moment. When we face the impossible, we need to ask for that God sight. And we may just realize that that thing that seemed so big and so unconquerable isn't that big at all. We need to get moving. Because when we start listening to that but, it can make us stand still. It can stop us pushing forward. But we need to take a step to push forward into whatever that promised land may be for you, and not be defeated by that but. Don't be afraid, as Elisha said. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Don't be discouraged. God can do anything. He is the master of the impossible. I hope that was an encouragement for you today. Thank you so much for joining me on the beach for that thought from the Bible. I will see you on Wednesday next week for the next video. See you then.